Hey, Nigel, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me. So I've built a career leading and managing category defining sales teams. So what's category defining? That means that all your peers are looking at you and your team and saying, we want to be more like them. Your CEO is telling you, do what they do. And I've learned that it's formulaic. It's a function of culture. It's a function of certain competencies, and that's how you become category defining. And so now I work with B2B companies, mostly in healthcare, that are trying to scale aggressively. And I'm hired by the investors or the executive team to go alongside their sales leader and coach them through strategic initiatives.
And how'd you get into this?
Didn't choose it. It chose me. I actually
go figure that.
You know, I'll be
that geology degree didn't pan out, or
yeah, you know, I played football in college and studied geology because it was the best way to be outside, and I just wanted to be outside. So I was outside all the time. I'm still outside all the time. I live on a farm in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky. I'm just someone that loves to be outside, and geology did that for me. And then I got into sales, healthcare sales. Healthcare sales picked me. I started working for a device company and then realized that there are probably more bad sales managers than there are good ones. And I got to learn by what not to do. And you know, I think I was a good sales leader because I was coached. So I've spent my whole life being coached by football coaches, and they, like you, they just hit you right on the nose with what it really is. It's brutal. And so if you can learn how to do that in a way that's loving and endearing, you know your coaches love you, but they tell you how dumb you are. They tell you how bad it is, and they don't mince words. So I was good at building and leading sales teams. And then I realized I was bad at being a manager and an executive in the Fortune 300 bureaucratic machine. I could not put up with the crap.
Yeah.
And I couldn't put up with death by meetings. I couldn't put up with unnecessary reports and all the waste that goes into being, you know, a big Fortune 300, 500 executive. I'm really bad at that. So I found myself just working with mid-market, equity-backed, mostly healthcare companies.
Yep. Cool. And what do you typically see when you go in? What is the state of the nation when you go in?
Good intentions. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. That's what I see. So you see an investor that doesn't know a lot about the business. You see a CEO who oftentimes is the founder and knows a lot about the product, but has never had to sell. Yeah. And you see a sales management team that is staring at a really aggressive growth goal so that the investors can get their money back, and they don't know how to get there. That's what I see.
Yeah. So a lot of finger pointing?
I don't know that it's a lot of finger pointing, but it's a lot of, maybe so-and-so knows how to do this. Well, maybe so-and-so. I think it's kind of finger pointing and you figure it out, you're not blaming you.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like push it down. I hired you to do it. You figure it out. But then that person needs a little bit from here, a little bit from there. The time frames are too convenient. And the solution for everything is what? More pressure?
Well, yes, in various forms. The reality is, whatever reason you don't hit your number won't be acceptable.
Yeah.
That's the truth. And that's what I have to coach sales leaders through. Do you think your investors care about seasonality of the business? No. Yeah. Do you think they care about competitive threats? Do you think they care about product market fit?
No.
It's called EBITDA.
EBITDA, right. But how about if that's unrealistic? I mean, because it puts you in a tough position as well, because they're hiring you as the magician, right? And the old saying is like, I'm a hairdresser, not a magician, right? Make me look like.
Well, I think that oftentimes it is realistic. I think that, so what I love about equity-backed companies is that typically they fail not because of a lack of resources, but because of a lack of resourcefulness.
Yeah.
So just a sign by them hiring me means that they're willing to deploy resources, because I'm not cheap. Yeah. And so they're paying an expensive sales leader, and then they're paying someone else who's expensive to hold their hand. It's about resourcefulness. And I find that many times the goals are very attainable It's just how are we going to do it? And I think sales leaders get caught up in forgetting that it's their job to have the best idea and the solution, but it doesn't necessarily have to come from their brain.
Okay. And what are they doing wrong? Are they having too much administrative activity? Are they focusing on the wrong accounts? Are they hiring the wrong people? Are they not, making enough
All
calls?
of that. I think it's, I am, one of the things, Brian, you'll appreciate about my geology degree is there's a lot of chemistry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of math. So a lot of geologists go into engineering. I have a very formulaic approach to hitting a number. And I don't think a lot of sales leaders back into that number. One, they didn't have a seat at the table in deciding on what the number is.
Right.
That's just a reality. So they got this number. Okay, so now what needs to be true if you're going to hit it? And so they just don't have a scientific method, and that's a big sciencey word, but they don't use the scientific method to figure out, okay, how many customers, how many transactions, transaction frequency, churn. And so if I just can get out a sheet of paper or a whiteboard and start asking all these questions, isolating variables, helping them think through it, and then that's why it's everything. It's administrative, it's hiring, it's closing percentage, it's segmenting and dividing the work between different types of teams on the sales organization. It all factors into an inability to reverse engineer what needs to be done.
Yeah, and I've seen the reverse engineering, and it can work, and it depends on the sale, how complicated it is, how big it is, whether it's just an initial sale or a repeat sale. But then people figure it out, okay, they turn it into, that means you have to make 200 calls a day. And then all of a sudden, well, all you really need is one client a month or every 2 weeks. Who's most likely to do that? That judgment skill gets muddled with the metrics.
Yep.
Because you get the
Absolutely.
Goodhart's law, where all of a sudden you put a measurement there, and that measurement no longer matters because everyone games the measurement instead of the result.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And that's the difference between managing and leading.
Yeah. Okay. That's the key.
Yeah, that's the key.
Now, do you find many leaders versus managers?
No, I think leaders, but I do think leaders, it's not like you're born with it. I think they're made.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's like this magical hocus pocus stuff. They're absolutely made over time. What I've found about leaders is they are insatiably curious, and they have this unending empathy. They have this ability to see things from other people's perspectives. Yeah. So to your point about the 200 dials, would I do 200 dials? Did I ever do? Nope. So why am I about to ask somebody else to do it?
Right. And it just becomes, there's that administrative view of it and the management side of it, which really is a sales operations problem, not a sales leadership problem. And then all of a sudden the troops just go like, it's like, the football players, like go past the football 100 times. It's like, well, 10 would be good. Then we should run back and forth and tackle each other. But all we care about is winning the game.
That's right.
Yeah. So anything.
That's absolutely right. And winning a football game is really simple. If you score more points than they do, you win. That's simple.
Right. But you got to be in shape. You got to,
but it's incredibly nuanced. Yeah.
But if you just run in circles all day, you're just exhausting yourself, and everyone feels good because you worked hard. So do you get a lot of defensiveness when you go in, where the manager is kind of like, oh no, now I've got to deal with Nigel?
Yes. Oftentimes that's the first thing you get is, I don't need you.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, I know you don't need me. I know you don't. And so I again, it goes back to empathy. I assume that every sales manager and sales leader knows how to lead a team, knows how to sell their product, and gets the business. I make that assumption. I assume they're the expert on their business and their team. The approach I take is, I know you don't need me, but what's possible if I could help you?
Yeah.
what would be possible if I worked for you? Put me to work. Tell me what to help you do.
Yeah.
And then when you take that approach and say, my job is just to ask questions. I'm just here to ask you questions. If you don't like the question, tell me to ask it in a different way. But I'm going to continue to ask questions. And then after a little bit of that, they realize this guy's for me. And I think that's what's different about the way I approach it is, even though the investor may have brought me in or the CEO did, I quickly become for that leader. I'm there for them,
Right.
Even when it's ugly.
Right, because the investor certainly wants to win the game. They just don't want to put a new player in there, you know.
No, they don't. It's really expensive to put a new player in there.
Yeah, and error prone, and yeah, because anyone who's interviewing for is like, why are you getting rid of the last guy? You know, and how long was he here?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not a great situation.
And I think what a lot of my clients, the sales leader that I work with, they assume they're doing something wrong. That's why I'm here. And I have to say, no, you did something right for me to be here because you put the company in a position to go do 60% year-over-year growth. Have you done that before? Oh, no, you haven't. Okay, great. Do you want to do it? Yeah. Okay. Well, then let's do it. Let's work together and get it done.
Cool. Hey, you wrote a great piece recently on the 90-day review. What was your motivation for doing that?
Never getting one as a sales rep.
I always like the 12-month one in reverse. And my manager goes, well, I got some negative feedback from this person. I don't know whether to believe it or not, so I'll just put it in the review. Oh, okay, that sounds fair.
That sounds real. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Doesn't really add anything to me. You know, nothing changes on my end. Well, how should it work?
Well, so the 90-day review starts in the interview process. Okay, so I have this belief that has been formed over time that the first 90-day period is dating. And we tell you that in the interview process. And you have permission to break up with us too. Okay? And so the reason I've found this is because I've learned that competency is great, but competency doesn't matter if character and culture aren't a fit.
Yeah.
And that's a two-way street. Okay. The other thing that I've used to really form this thesis around the 90-day review is that time in dilutes awareness of. The longer you're in a company, the less likely you are to understand how things really are. Yeah. So let me play this out an example of how this is true. You know, we really value our onboarding experience, and you know, we've got some of the best training and enablement in the company, and that's why in the industry, that's why you should come work with us. Did you know it took me a week to get my phone and computer? Yeah. No, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's a two later. Yeah. So do you know I still can't get Salesforce to work? Still can't. Yeah, it's a VPN issue. I can't get in there. So the way it should work is it should absolutely have the manager's assessment. We should have some empirical way to assess reps' performance in more than just the numbers, culture and character, but it also should have the reps' assessment of the company, and then a cultural diagnostic that's good for the leader, whether or not the rep's going to work or not. And so what I did is I took, again, because I'm a scientist, a very formulaic approach. It's transparent. Everybody involved, product, HR, the rep, the manager, they understand the variables that go into this equation. And at the end of the 90-day review, we look at the outcome and decide if we want to get married.
Okay. But if you tell a rep, if I heard that as a rep going in, I'd be like, well, this sounds like, a temporary role or and especially when it doesn't involve anything other than revenue. I like it in the sense that sales is a performance profession. And I heard a rep this week tell me, I already paid my dues. No. It doesn't matter what you did yesterday.
Yeah.
Football player, doesn't matter how well you did yesterday. that money might be in the bank, but you're not going to get a contract re-upped unless you're performing good today.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because I get that a lot when I go in and I tell my clients from now on, the first 90 days is a probationary period. We're not going to be able to hire anyone. You're not? Why is that true? Well, they're going to be fearful that we're going to let them go at 90 days. Well, what could we do to offset that? I don't know. How many reps do you have on this team now that went through the 90 days and love it? Yeah. Most of them. How many of the people you interview talk to those reps? Oh, we don't do that. Why not?
Right.
And so it's just helping them solve their own problems. That's how you be more transparent about what's expected, how many reps make it through. And then honestly, it puts the work back on the rep. Are you willing to do this? Yeah. We're very clear about what it takes to be successful. It's up to you.
Yeah. And how does it typically pay off for the company? Because I'm certainly for that 90 days, the person's hyper-focused and open-minded. But then does that continue after that? That habit must be developed then after 90 days. Is that true?
Yes, it is true. And performance management becomes increasingly more formal after the 90 days. So I think a lot of companies let off on performance management, but I hit the gas on it. So yeah. You get a formal review at the end of your first 90 days, and then I like a more formal review every month with the reps. I find that they keep their eye on the ball a little bit more closer, so to speak. And really the manager's job in performance management is to serve as a note taker as to whether or not the rep chose to do their job or not.
Yeah.
And so when we get to this big annual review, there's no surprises because the rep has 12 monthly reviews and they know how it's going to go.
And that's it. And I always, having spent my whole career in sales, I think I got one annual review in the whole 25 years.
3 months after the year was over.
Oh, a good 3 months after the year was over.
Yeah.
There was zero in it for me. The salary wasn't an option, base or target. Neither was changed. It was all uniform. All it was criticism. There was no positive element to it. And you're an employee at will anyway. So they can fire you anytime for any reason. They don't have to justify it. There's no legal binding contract between employee and salesperson. And the same way for the salesperson. They can go get another job anytime and leave without a day's notice. So I think a review is good, but how do you really make it so that it's increasing their focus on what is good in the job? Meaning, like, instead of blaming the product, blaming the territory, blaming the CRM, blaming the time of year, all of the things that, because most reps, it's everything but them, right?
Yeah. So here's the great thing about increasing the frequency of those, of the formal review. So if I do it every month, you get a little bit more control of what you commit to doing. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to give you a goal for the year, but let's break it up into 12 tranches, a little bit more incremental. So you tell me if it's not going to happen for you, if you're not going to hit quota, or if this is going to stand in the way, because again, my job is the note taker. So I'm assessing how believable you are and telling me what you're going to do in the future month or future periods. So if you tell me that seasonality is a problem and you're managing my expectations and you deliver on what you say you're going to do, then we don't have a problem. It's when you tell me you're going to be here, you're going to close this deal, you're going to work with this stakeholder to remove some barrier that is impeding your success, and then it doesn't get done. Well, who's accountable, me or you? Right. You're the one that said you were going to do it. Right. And so that's why I like doing it more frequently.
Yeah,
it helps you. It's like it goes back to what it's the rep's job. If they're having problems getting what they need, it's like, yes, I'm here to help you, coach you, but you got to get it done. It's your job.
You got to get it done. And if you don't do that, then it's what I call a stalemate, where the rep is telling you what you want to hear. The manager's trying to tell you what he wants or she wants. No one's really doing it. They're just pretending to be doing it. And they're waiting for the other person to pull the trigger. Either the rep leaves or the manager fires them. And
That's right.
if you wait, both people are losing. The manager always wins. You know?
Yep.
Right. And how
so that's a good point.
Yeah.
You said if we wait, and here's what I see most companies do that don't adopt this, we're going to make a decision at 90 days. They wait. They pass the buck. They push it down. Here we are 6, 9 months, 12 months into a bad hire. And all the signs were there at 90 days.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in 90 days.
You just know.
Right. Nobody's that good of an actor. And how about from the reps? What do you typically hear from them when you go into one of your clients? What are they telling you? Is it a different story from each one, or?
I don't get the truth from the reps until after about 60 to 90 days.
Yeah. They tell you what they think you want to hear, right?
Maybe they definitely tell me what they want me to hear.
Yeah.
That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
It all depends on their relationship with coaching. Really, truthfully, coaching from their leader and coaching from others. So let me unpack that a bit. If they are afraid that it's going to result in the leader they like who doesn't bother them starting to bother them,
yeah,
they're not going to tell me the truth. If they don't want to, nobody wants to disrupt what's going on with the company. And that's why it takes me a while to show them that I'm really here to help them. Nobody's in trouble. Again, everybody assumes that somebody's in trouble. That's why I'm here. And that's not the case at all. Nobody's in trouble.
Well, that's it. As a rep, it's always a roller coaster. If you do really well, then the territory gets cut. If you do really bad, you're put on a plan and everyone's micromanaging you and you can't move without checking with somebody.
Yeah.
So how long does it typically take you to take your clients through this process?
So we are 6 months. We're deep into it, and it goes into a maintenance phase. So I don't get the truth for a little while from the reps, but I start to get the truth really quickly from the manager, really quickly. And then we start setting a course of action. How do we realign this? Typically what in all instances, the go-to-market strategy, the sales strategy is misaligned with the business strategy. And it's just getting everybody back in line, and then they know how to handle it. They can take it from there. And we go into maintenance, and I go into therapy mode on a once-a-month call with the sales leader.
Cool. Hey, this has been a great conversation. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about your work and your company?
Yeah, you go to Find Evergreen, F-I-N-D, evergreen, all one word.com, and you'll find resources and articles on being a better sales leader.